Now, more than 2 years after a $1.28 billion agreement was first agreed upon, the federal government has approved the transfer of ExxonMobil's onshore assets to Seplat Energy. This was confirmed to Reuters on Monday by CEO of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Benga Komolafe. First reported in February 2022, the sale had been postponed while awaiting regulatory clearance. Now, between 2021 and 2023, the Nigerian government lost 13.2 trillion naira in revenue as a result of the foreign exchange subsidy policy. The World Bank estimates that the losses between 2021 and 2023 sits at 2 trillion naira, 6.2 trillion naira, and 5 trillion naira respectively. Still in Nigeria, the country's economic growth was reduced by the International Monetary Fund on Tuesday to 2.9% in 2024. Nigeria's growth projection was dropped by the fund in its Global Economic Outlook report due to the impact of floods, lower than expected activity in the first half of the year, and insecurity in oil-producing regions. Now, as always, I have with me Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu, who joins me now to discuss this further. Good morning, Mr. Chika. How are you today? I'm very well. Thanks, and yourself?
Yeah, my pleasure.
Great. Let's begin with Nigeria, approving ExxonMobil's asset sale to Seplat after 2 years.
Very good news. Very good news. We've been talking about this in this program. And that we need to ramp up oil production.
Yeah, you say all the time.
And I said God's gift to us is oil. And I appreciate all the traveling to Sweden, to Dubai, to Washington. But I mean, our salvation lies in sorting out what's happening in the creeks, in the oil belt areas in Nigeria. Make sure that the oil production is ramped up to 2 million barrels, a day minimum, to enable us, get the right revenues required to move this country, get us out of this storm. And so, as a background for a lot of our viewers, so we don't know, I've talked about this in this program when I spoke about the Oando Ajib acquisition and approval. Okay. This is similar to that, and it's been on the plate for a long time now. Seplat and Mobil, ExxonMobil transaction, and we're expecting to be approved. Now, just to position it, as I said before in one program here, that the oil production in Nigeria is onshore and offshore. And then onshore is on the land and near shallow waters, and offshore is, of course, in the high seas in the ocean. And because of the problems that has buffeted the production in the onshore area, the land areas, aka things like security, broken pipes, community problems. A lot of the international oil companies have been selling off their assets in the onshore areas to move into the offshore, where they have relative peace. A lot of them have done that, and so the assets they've been selling them one by one. And I know the first one they approved was the Oando Ajib transaction, and then on the Mbonu was that I think 4 other ones, majorly the Seplat and the Mobil transaction. And we thank God now that I approved it. And the thing about this, Nigeria is hungry for barrels of oil, crude to export, to enable us recover our revenues. And each time that an IO's international oil company says they want to sell, they stop actually making investment in those wells. And literally the wells become dormant. And so you find that no investment is being done. I mean, Total Energies, I think I said somewhere that for 12 years, they have not actually made any investments in their own wells that they want to fling. And so that tells you things like that. So when we look at Nigeria struggling to barely meet our OPEC quota at 1.3 million barrels per day, you can find where the problems or the solutions lie. Give these approvals. And so that this local oil production companies can now start working on those wells, and then oil will start running again. And so this is commendable to any PLC. And we hope that the other approvals will come out also. Sadly, we read that the Shell Renaissance transaction didn't make the mark, cross the benchmark set by NGPLC for good reasons. I'm sure that they may go back to the block again and then, cross the T's and dot the I's and see whether they can represent, so that also will cross and the production can start again. As I say in this program, God's gift to Nigeria is oil, and we should just put everything, all the resources we have towards it to make sure that we ramp up production to 2 million barrels minimum a day, And then this will get us out of this problem that we have.
Absolutely, a glaring solution. And, I was going to ask you about the Shell. It's sad to hear that in terms of Shell, but of course, like you said, there will be some adjustments made to hopefully get back there.
Any PLC said that they don't have the experience or the wherewithal. I think they have agreed a framework. I think about 6 criteria where they tick off. Interestingly, there are some names there already who are already running wells, and I don't know the kind of experience they need. But
yes,
I'm
because
sure
that's interesting that a company like Shell would be said to not have the experience.
So I'm sure that they work out things and then represent maybe, or get some new partners into the joint venture to enable them cross the threshold for this approval to be given to them.
Absolutely. All right,
we need the barriers of oil.
We certainly do. You couldn't mention that too many more times. We definitely do. Well, let's look next at Nigeria's foreign exchange subsidy policy leading to 13.2 trillion naira in lost revenues.
Again, if we read that report, you will see that it's symptomatic of the problem of anything that you're subsidizing. Because let me just rephrase. One says the lost revenue benefited certain groups at the expense of the entire country.
Okay.
Certain groups at the expense of the entire country. That just tells you what happens when you keep subsidizing things. If you go to the PMS, the petrol we're talking about, the same thing also. That, look at what's happening now. That daily production used to be ballooned to 60 million liters a day. Now we hear that it's come down substantially because Nigeria was actually, our petrol was seen far away in Sudan, because it was cheap, very cheap. And the other thing, that comment that was made here was that it was increasingly opaque, distortive, and inconsistent with maintaining price stability, including multiple managed and valued exchange rates. The same thing, whenever you are subsidizing things, you're going to have these discretionary things. A lot of people are going to make money from it, and then to the expense of the whole nation. And the way you can validate this report is, look at this, Abby. Yeah. When the exchange rates moved from the 600, threshold to the 1,000, near 1,000 threshold, you saw how it's, the FAC allocation to the states actually increased. Yeah. And a lot of states were getting almost double, triple what they were getting before. This is actually what this report is trying to validate. That during that time, during those periods, up to February 22 and 2024, when these rates were all held down, Nigerian states were losing revenue, simply because the oil revenue is gotten in dollars, and the translation is done at managed exchange rate. So that's basically what this mathematics is all about.
What about the importers, though, for the subsidized forex?
But you see the issue. That's the thing I say about subsidies. If you manage the exchange rate, of course, the importers will have lower exchange rate to bring in the raw materials into the country. But some things are suffering. It is only a temporary phase. Now that has gone, there's a suffering involved. Prices are up. But the issue now is that, Abby, everybody has to look inwards. A lot of these raw materials that people are just jumping to China to go and bring in here. A lot of them can be produced in Nigeria with some incentives. Okay. And not everything should be imported. So for local production, they're incentivized now to look inwards. All these manufacturers who look for raw materials, a lot of them with some little investment, which are available in the Bank of Industry or Bank of Agriculture and so on and so forth. This investment things can be produced in Nigeria. Instead of just bringing every spoon and toothpick and everything into our country.
Penny wise, pound foolish
into our country. So that's that. The other flip side of it also is that, find something to export, Abby. That's where the money is now. Find something to export. Our exports are cheaper now, and people abroad are going to look for them. So lower exchange rates, weaker exchange rates help us to the exporters to get more money.
Especially for the long term, no band-aid approaches.
Yes,
All right, I want to thank you so much, Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu, for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow.